Hi, I'm Alejandra Sanchez-Rios. I want to present to you experiences of the woman of color in the earth sciences, seen through a social justice lens. First, I want to apologize for not being able to be there today in class, and thank you for letting me play a little my presentation and having the space for me to present to you. I really appreciate it. Before we dive into the research and information I've gathered, I'll try to look at myself and look at the position I have regarding this story and the motivation for it. I start with the picture that I chose for the photo boys and to acknowledge that I am a woman of color, physical oceanographer, and I feel this picture really embeds that idea of going to the field work and being a physical oceanographer. I'm transnational in the way that I grew up in Mexico. English was not my first language, um, but I grew up near the border. I was born in the United States, so I'm bilingual, not just in the language, but I think culturally see myself bilingual. I grew up Catholic, and I think in the sciences it's important, as I have seen in the literature review that I've done, how much acceptance to the Catholic religion there is in sciences. We celebrate, or we at least respect the dates for Christian holidays, but not for any other holidays. Um, and even though a lot of people will say they're not religious, they will not um, criticize someone taking days off for Christmas or for Easter. I'm able-bodied, and again, this is really reflected in this picture. If I wasn't, I wouldn't been able to have the opportunities to go into the cruise and experience and becoming a field oceanographer. And I'm a senior PhD student, which gives me power when I'm mentoring undergrads and where I'm mentoring grad students are in the first year. And the motivation for me for this study was to really understand my own experience through this process of obtaining a PhD, and trying to understand how can I better improve it for generations, or not even generations, just for the students who are starting. So the first step that I did was trying to look at the history of women in earth sciences. Start with trying to define what earth sciences is, and I think that was the best definition I could, the best the best word to come up with the sciences that I wanted to express. Because so as sciences will usually have to do field work, will have a lot of math and physical background, and something also really interesting, they have a military or history. So this is an examples of some of the earth sciences. We have climate science, geography, ocean science, geology, meteorology, and I will add to this picture also astronomy. By military history, I mean that, for example, ocean science and geography were really driven to understand the environment to be able to move around it better. So the Navy, for example, still invests a lot of money in oceanography to be able to map currents correctly so they can use submarines correctly, either in South China Sea or in the Pacific. Oceanography really was born from the Cold War and World War II when they were trying to really control the sea. Geography the same for a lot of the maps, a lot of exploration, if that's the right word, was really pushed for conquest, was really pushed to exploit natural resources. And something other particular about earth sciences is that compared to other STEM fields and social sciences, women are still heavily underrepresented in this area compared to others. So they do not, the word is, they don't attract women. It could be because of the fieldwork, it could be because of the math background, and in this paper I'm trying to really figure those details a little bit better. One of the first women oceanographers that was really renowned was Mary Tarp. She actually came the word to discover bathymetry in the ocean that led to understanding of how plate tectonics move. So in a way, she was able to prove that the plate tectonics theory was correct. Of course, the recognition was not given to her in the moment. Her advisor and her boss actually got the recognition. Some of the arguments against her was because she was a woman, she was silly. The work that I was looking at the literature, silly, doesn't understand the concept correctly. And one phrase that stuck to me was that the way she answered to this kind of comments was, "I was so busy making maps, I let them argue." So in this idea that a woman has to have a thick skin and let people just comments brush her through and just get interested in the science. Even though that's true, she did not get the recognition, and she probably could have contributed a lot more if people just have given her the voice to be able to contribute. This is a picture of her with another scientist, Elena Lubimova, which for me has a really interesting story. Elena was actually the first woman being able to go in a research vessel in the United States, and it was because the institution in Scripps, which is in San Diego, didn't realize that when the government invited Russian scientists to go in to participate in a research experiment, that the leader was a woman. So they even thought about it. So when they say yes, and the name came up that actually we'll have to let this woman go into a cruise, they couldn't back out. So this is how the first woman was able to go into a research vessel in the United States. It was during the Cold War, so there was a lot of diplomatic issues, and that's why they didn't argue against the government. So one question here is, how did the culture and the country where they come affected these two women differently? Some of the current women experiences in academia, and I'm just going to name a few, is the biases that exist when women are being cited or when women are trying to define if they're going to be first co-authors or second authors. There has been a lot of research proving that women constantly do not get first authors on works that they might have led or that they're not cited. These two are correlated, but also when you're writing a paper, there's also papers that had studied how you're biased to cite men work more than female work. Those two for me is really important because in this world of publish or perish, or where you are measured by how much you publish or how much you cited, women are already started behind the line because they're already a bias about how much time to get mentioned. I mentioned the two-body problem quickly just as an idea of that when they're looking for a new job and we're a grad student who just graduated and is looking for a job, getting your spouse or your partner a job where you are trying to apply or trying to negotiate that with the administration has been really hard for women compared to men. Another important issue that I'll address is harassment in the fieldwork and microaggressions. And I do the emphasis on the fieldwork because, as we'll see, the fieldwork really makes for a different dynamics. You're isolated from your families and friends. You're in a remote location, so you really cannot pick up your car and leave. You're in tight quarters, so if someone is making you uncomfortable, looking at you, but you feel in the wrong way or touching you inappropriately, you really see him 24/7. Even you're in a cruise, you're in the desert, you're in a mountain, you are living with this person. You cannot just ignore it. And this person can be your boss, can be the captain of the boat, can be a senior scientist that's really important and nobody wants to get him upset. So the power dynamics there changes immensely. And sometimes the person you should report it to is this person in power. Recent studies have realized how much this impacts not just women, but women of color in greater quantities. And this is why I make the emphasis of social justice lens and seeing how the culture that is in academia targets a specific type of people. And the more you are far away from the norm, from being a male, white, heterosexual, able-bodied, etc. person, the more you are susceptible to an unsafe space. So this study done in 2017 did an interview to 400 scientists in astronomy and I think also physical department throughout the United States, and they looked at how they felt, if they felt unsafe, were they recognized as microaggressions, did they have support from administration. Green are women, blue are men. The dark color is a woman of color, a man of color, and this is really just a way to represent how women of color get impacted in every dimension that we look at, and how the race and religion plays an important role in adding stress, and adding this feeling of unsafeness. So I feel the problem with academia is this idea of meritocracy, this culture that is giving the same access to everybody. Now there's a little more emphasis on women, of giving a lot of support to women, but we don't talk about race, we still don't talk about background, we still don't talk about class, religion, cultural language. So this idea that, but science speaks for itself. If you're a good scientist, it doesn't matter where you come from. It's really impacting the environment we're creating. And bringing a little bit my own story, I'm from Mexico, and trying to discover a little bit how my culture has impacted the way I see myself as a scientist. There was a really good paper from 3 Mexican scholars in 2012 that addressed 2 important topics in Mexico, which is machismo, marianismo. Machismo is this idea that a man has to be strong and independent and strong. Sorry, I'm repeating the word strong, and just like this picture represents as like someone that women look up for and respect, and the guardian of everything that's good and weak. And that woman should have to be tailored to Marianismo, which comes from the word Maria. And for us, religion is really important, and this is like the idea of the woman has to be a good woman, silent, servitude, self-sacrifice. The more you sacrifice, the better woman you are. And they try to tailor to understand how this affects a scientist. And I have to say, like growing up, I have learned how to love Pedro Infante, which is the actor in this movie, which plays a really macho person throughout the course of his career. And I have to stop myself thinking how I've also been socialized to see that as a positive trait in men. I'm going to go quickly, but this study reveals that women that have succeeded in science have seen themselves the traits of macho. So in a way, they call it positive macho and negative macho. Those are the green box. How women and men who are seen as successful are passionate, dedicated, honest, self-disciplined, protective, strong. They don't cry. They're objective. You can see where I'm going. And that women, the Marianismo is seen as negative, right? That women cry, they're silly, they have affairs, they pretend to be weak, they're petty, vindicated. And the only positive thing about Marianismo is that, they're humble and they can work with teams. And the interesting part of here is that most negative attribution from women came actually from the scientists that were women. So this is something that impacts women in this culture. This machismo, marianismo impact us both the same way. So it's a culture of thinking what is positive and how do we see that in our color. When we look at all of this microaggressions and the culture we embedded and the type of the meritocracy, we're trying to understand, why is women not staying in science? Why do they choose to leave? If choose is the right word. We see that women of color in science just have so many distractions and things to worry about. The anger of being the microaggression, the family, the performance anxiety, the feeling that they're not good enough, the stress of the work, the sadness of being called out every time that you're there and being excluded from a society that you're trying to be part of. Besides the work, besides the family. And here, personal interest, it gets smaller and smaller, so you really don't have a place to recover, the place to make you feel better as a person. And we still ask this question, why women leave in academia? Like if there's a choice, it's like they're not being pushed out of academia, which sometimes I feel that way too. There are a couple of projects being done right now to try to promote more women or more diversity, as they call it in academia. And I see like an ivory tower where academics are in this ivory tower in its earth sciences, and then asking themselves, why are there nobody trying to be here with us? So they throw ropes, they make outreach programs, they try to invest on programs that will increase diversity in their group. But still they're making the people climb those ropes, climb those ladders, and then trying to assimilate them to the white ivory tower culture. And I'm trying to promote an idea of lowering that ivory tower, really asking ourselves, why are we having this culture of elitism where we pretend that we're better off better than someone else, and then to be in this group of better human beings because we're scientists of physics and math, trying to understand our own our biases, trying to understand how we exclude people instead of making them assimilate to us. Thank you so much for listening to this presentation. I hope to see you soon, and have a great day.